and layer effects that you can add to your images in Photoshop. You may be familiar with filters already, especially if you use Instagram or if you use editing software on your phones, or VSCO, any of those photography-based social media apps. The layer effects are something that are going to be helpful for you in developing a sense of depth in your imagery. And as we can note right here, I have two kind of busy images overlapping each other. So what we're going to do today, we're going to be looking through a couple different ways that we can add some separation between the two of them to make it really pop more for my logo. So hypothetically, up here, I have an image of Clearwater Beach and a jet ski company logo. I'm going to show you the layer effects on my logo and the filters on the background. So if you're looking for only the tutorial on filters, you can skip ahead until you see me starting to play around with the background. First off, the layer effects with the logo. So what this is going to do, I'm going to go ahead, and these are my two layers down here where my mouse is, and I've just renamed them to reflect what each one is. This right here, this cloud tells me that it's a smart object because I imported it from Illustrator. So what I'm going to do, I can either double click or I can right click and then hit properties. And then I'm going to get this toolbar that pops up, and this will instantly show you a preview with this box checked of what the effect is going to do to your whatever it is that you're trying to add the layer effects to. So in this case, my logo. So I'm going to go through them just one by one. Some of them are super, super common. Some of them you won't really end up using so much anymore. And of course, there are presets as with most Adobe programs. So for example, if I were to look through these different presets, the basic one, it looks like there's a little bit of a shadow behind. And as I click that, see how it instantly adds that sense of depth. It's very minimal, but it really starts to make my image look a bit more put together. I can go through. The natural one is going to add a bevel, we call it, around the edge. And also that texture, it just totally overlays the colors that were there before. And you'll notice that for most of these effects that are presets, but they can be very helpful if you're just doing something quickly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to this box with the red line through it to cancel out those preset ones. And as I was starting off with the layer style, these right here, these settings are basically a extended version of what you'll see when you have your layer hovered over. As in, the blend mode, normal, normal. If I change it to multiply, for example, I'm going to start to notice things are happening. I'm seeing the background through it. These can be great ways to make really interesting images. I see a lot of works that look beautiful with the lighten feature. But in our case here, where we're trying to make a logo that really pops out, we would want some high contrast. So we don't actually want it probably blending in with the background or showing anything through. So this is all basically what you can experiment with when it comes time for you to look through your images and see how you want to combine them, what you want to Photoshop, what you want to add differently. So I'm going to leave that on normal. And I'm also going to note that the opacity is basically, if it's 100%, it is opaque, meaning it is very, very dense. You can't see through it. And it gets more translucent, or you can see through it as we lower our opacity. That is to say, sometimes, you know, if we are at 50% opacity, well, that will look different than multiply, for example, but we will see colors showing through both of them. It's just different ways that you can get the different looks. Bevel and emboss. This right here will give you that that look where you get the highlighted and the shaded edges around your shape, and I can I can make them bigger. If you noticed on old iPhones, this was how most of the apps and everything were designed when they first came out. But now design tends to try to go a little bit lighter with the bevel and emboss. We can change the angle in which our bevel is coming from, meaning that that would be the light source. All of these are things that you can experiment with, see what you like, see what you don't like, and think about as you're going through this, what use might this have? And I've already made this look very metallic just by a couple of quick actions there. As we finish this up, I'm just going to go ahead and unclick it. For stroke, stroke is a great tool. Stroke is an outline, and this is the same terminology used in Adobe Illustrator. So if I increase my stroke size to 8 pixels, let's say, I get a pretty visible outline there. I can also make my stroke be on the outside rather than on the inside if I don't want the stroke eating away at that pixel space that I have already created, or centered, of course, and these will just change your look ever so slightly. Inner shadows, this will also add a sense of depth to your work. I'm increasing my opacity so you can see a little bit, adding some distance to it, meaning the distance that the shadow is. The choke and the size. The choke will be how far the gradient or the pixels fade out is. And the size, again, you can see that that's pretty similar. It'll increase the distance that your shadows fade out to. Inner glow. This is basically the same thing as the, as the inner shadow. The only difference is I'm going in and I'm choosing a different color so that you can see that you can modify the color. You can modify the color for this, and it tends to come from all around rather than just from one direction. Satin. This one is a little bit like the bevel and emboss as well. So of course you can see it's just adding a little bit of distress to it, a little bit of texture. And you can change right now because this is a diagonal line. It's actually showing very uniform, but if I wanted to really see what would happen if I did something different, then of course clicking around on the contour lines, that'll give you some different looks to it. Color overlay. If you don't like the color that you designed something, you can choose one color and make it all that. I could choose black. I think white might really make this pop. I could lighten it up even a little bit if I just added a low opacity or high translucent color overlay of white. Gradient overlay would be a very similar thing. I'm going to go ahead and choose, let's choose a pretty blue. There we go. So I could go ahead and choose a gradient. It'll overlay nicely. Of course, I can modify all those things like multiply, and then that blue and cyan is overlaid differently than it would have been if it's in normal mode. Pattern overlay, that's what we saw in the styles. So we have quite a few different patterns to choose from. And these could be really helpful to you, or you could even load a custom image in with this button here. These could be really helpful for you depending on what it is that you're trying to represent. If I had like a zip lining fall New England or something company, right, it could look so cool with the tree showing through the logo, versus if my intention was to be on water, or if I was like a pool care company, I might want to do something mosaic like this to represent like the bottom of a pool. All right, outer glow. This is going to be, and again, screen is just not really showing up much because my image is very busy. I'm just changing it to normal so you can see. But the outer glow is going to give you a radiating light from your layer. Let's choose some blue so we can really see it. And of course, I'm adding to the size. That way it's just a little bit more visible. And I can always play with how the contour lines work. And that way it'll do something a little bit different. I can find something I like, or maybe I say I don't like those. Let's stay with the normal, predictable, all-around version of the glow. Lastly, the drop shadow, that will be a shadow coming from just one direction for the most part. And what that'll do, of course, it will give you that sense of depth, that sense that your design is hovering off of your image just a little bit. I do suggest not going crazy with the drop shadow. Just as with the bevel and emboss, those tended to be an older trend in design. So we tend to see the designs moving a bit more away from this now. You can also combine them. So for example, if I wanted to make mine all the color white with my drop shadow coming off of it, I am totally able to. Multiply is going to hide that. As we know, I could even lighten it. I could go ahead and combine the bevel and emboss with the drop shadow. Your options are infinite here. So always remember, check out your layer styles if you want to enhance the look of any certain layer that you have, or if it's just not feeling totally finished yet. Now that we've got this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to unclick the bevel and emboss right here, and it's a super quick way that we can add that visual. We can see, do we like it, do we not like it, what works well, and if I don't like it, I'm going to just keep it hidden.